for joining us. We are honored to have you here. The 2023 Women's History Month theme is Celebrating Women Who Tell Our Stories. This theme honors women in every community who have devoted their lives and talents to producing art, pursuing truth, and reflecting the human condition. We are excited to have 3 women storytellers joining us today to dig into what inspires them, the importance of representation, and what young readers can learn from their work. So diving right in, I want to kick off the discussion by asking each of our authors here tonight who their favorite woman storyteller is. And this could be a filmmaker, a playwright, journalist, whoever inspires you. And any of you can take it away.
I guess I'll go first. Hi. I am still and will always stick to, there's so many storytellers I love, but I am still emboldened to Zora Neale Hurston, just because her books and her storytelling is like a good meal for the soul. And it seems like I'm just sitting on somebody's porch and in a rocking chair, sipping lemonade and eating hotcakes.
I can go next. Hi, Brittney Morris. I would have to choose N.K. Jemisin. I'm already a huge fan of sci-fi, and she just takes it to another level. I mean, all of her books are just incredible. Everyone I've read so far. It feels like I'm watching a movie almost. It's so cinematic.
So ever since I was a child, I was very, very drawn to women storytellers in particular. I really quickly figured out that I resonated more with their stories. And so there are many, but one in particular is Sabaa Tahir. She has been a great source of inspiration to me ever since I first read her Ember Quartet. And then recently, she proved that she can write across genres with her novel All My Rage, which is just so gripping and powerful. She just has such a way with characters that you can't help but root for and relate to, even when they're very, very complex.
Thank you so much. Those are excellent people to add to our repertoire. Brittney, in addition to novels, you also write video games, such as The Lost Legends of Redwall, Subnautica, Spider-Man 2, and Wolverine. What made you explore this less traditional mode of storytelling?
What a great question. I think I fell in love with story before I fell in love with books. So I was a reluctant reader as a kid, but I did love playing video games that involved like heavy story elements. So Zelda, even a lot of the Mario games, Super Mario Sunshine was, I think, my first story game that I fell in love with. And just the art of storytelling, especially with such a cinematic medium, really, really spoke to me. I think I may have had attention issues as a kid even. But I also have taken in a lot of specifically indie video games, which is where you'll find a lot of like the big stories and the heavy hitting topics. So I've played video games that tackle depression, anxiety, terminal illness, among so many other topics. And by the time I got around to writing a book that really spoke to me and was about a topic that I really wanted to explore, which was racial identity in Slay, especially after seeing the movie Black Panther, I really, really needed to get a story out about exploring one's racial identity and what it really means to be a Black woman on your own terms. Video games just seemed like a medium that made sense to explore such a big topic. And it all kind of just fell into place. I came up with the idea for Kira and her game, and she explored what it means to be a strong Black woman on her own terms.
Wow, thank you. It's interesting because I've never really thought of video games in the way of storytelling until you sit down and watch someone else play and really get involved in, and what do you mean your character has to decide things, and what do you mean your character has to, so it's really interesting. My husband likes that. I'm not a video game person, but I do see the intrigue. Priyanka, you have said that you write Bengali characters that you wish you had growing up. What messages were missing from YA books you grew up with that you want to pass on now to young readers?
So I grew up as a young brown Muslim girl. In the wake of 9/11, I experienced 9/11 when I was, I think, 10. And I was always kind of torn between two worlds because I was born and raised in the US. And a lot of the diaspora community that I grew up in were either recent immigrants or not Bengali at all. So there was already some xenophobia. And then after 9/11, there was a lot of Islamophobia. And so books were my escape, but I didn't see characters like myself in books that I could escape into. The majority of books that I saw that featured characters that looked like me or somewhat represented my identity were almost always what they call issue books, dealing with Muslim characters who have a lot of trauma, who are facing Islamophobia, who are trying to figure out how to navigate their identity. And that wasn't really what I wanted to read. So I often found myself escaping instead into fantasy novels. I was a huge reader of fantasy as a kid. And I could feel sometimes when the characters are described as like olive skinned or whatever might be the case, I felt like, okay, then that's a little bit like me, maybe. So I related to those characters instead. I want in my books for readers to feel like they can be the main characters, that they can have romances, that they can have all these things that I didn't really see, and really joyful representation. That's what I want to push out to readers.
I love that phrase, joyful representation. As a teacher myself, I feel that that need in our classroom. Your debut novel, The Love Match, is loosely inspired by Pride and Prejudice, a book many students have read in their high school English class. In what ways do you stick to the traditional tropes of romance, and how do you subvert that expectation?
That's a really great question. So I always get a lot of mixed responses in a very fun way when it comes to readers interpreting Pride and Prejudice within The Love Match, because I never really intended it to be a beat by beat reimagining of Pride and Prejudice. So I really do my own thing with the story. And I think hopefully from what I've seen, readers seem to like that, which is good. But there are a lot of elements of Pride and Prejudice that you can still find in the story. One reason that I wanted to kind of emulate what Austen does in her works is because I feel like the South Asian Muslim community in the modern day still has these aspects of matchmaking and nosy parents and nosy aunties that you would see within Austen's works. So in The Love Match, there is a meddling mother, just like there is in Pride and Prejudice, who really wants her daughter to be set up in life, and she thinks that the best way to do that is for her to set her up, is to matchmake her with a boy from a wealthy family. So in that sense, there is that aspect, and then there's also the family connection, because I think Elizabeth in Pride and Prejudice is really, really devoted to her family. She can come off as snarky sometimes, but she really worries about her sisters, and she wants them to meet success and find love and be happy. And so that's very, very similar, but the way that I reinterpreted it within The Love Match is by making Zara, my protagonist, the oldest daughter, because I feel like within a lot of immigrant families, and families in general, oldest daughters are often burdened to feel like kind of the third parent, and they take on a lot of responsibilities that maybe necessarily sons wouldn't. So in that sense, there is a little bit of subversion from the story itself. And then, like I said, I kind of play around with it and do my own thing. And then where the story really takes a turn is that Zara and the boy that she's set up with decide that they're going to pretend to embark on a relationship together, just to keep their families happy, because both of them want to be good Bangladeshi kids that don't disappoint their families, but at the same time, they are scheming to sabotage the relationship from within. And she's falling for a boy who her community would not necessarily approve of.
Thank you so much. Alicia, your work is infused with powerful stories of women from history, like American author Zora Neale Hurston, who you talked about before, and Shirley Chisholm, the first Black Congresswoman. What characteristics draw you to these historical figures?
Yeah, that's a good question too. I think the things that I wanted when I was a little girl and I wanted as I could grow older, these attributes of daring and being brave and bold and being able to push buttons, they both had them and they used them in different ways. And I go through my life sometimes and I'll play this little game with myself. What would I have done during a certain period in my life? What would I have done if I was born during a certain period in history? Would I have had the courage to speak up? Would I have had the courage to do this? And I play these games because now I realize we are living in the same political and social social and political environment. It's repeating itself. So when I started writing these stories, I never expected that I would have to lean on these attributes. When I wrote them, I didn't think we would be traveling back in time. So I leaned in now, and I still do, what we're living in, this how Zora, who was told, listen, you can't write this love stories because you're not dealing with oppression. And she said, no, I'm going to write what I know. She said, oh, I want to be educated. And they told her no. Every time there was a no, she found a yes. And to be brave enough to travel in a car during Jim Crow, during lynchings, and ride down the back roads of Southern towns collecting treasures of oral storytelling. That I've been through Tennessee with so many Confederate flags that I was scared for my life. And I thought, how did she do it? But that brave and that daring and that audacity, even Shirley Chisholm, reading her bio, this woman was not just daring. She was beyond. This petite woman was beyond herself. And she would face the old traditions of old white political lawmakers. And she would speak up. She would not back down. She called herself Fighting Shirley Chisholm, Bought and Unbossed. And how dare she? How dare she? With so many people say, how dare you have that attitude? How dare you walk tall? And I kind of lean on that now because we're facing a tumultuous time and it's so uncertain that writing this, I lean back. How can I have that daring attitude? How can I be rebellious? How can I say, no, your no is not a limitation. It's not a finality because I'm gonna do it. And this can be done. So I lean into it and I hope our readers do too.
Excellent.